Clicking on this video just triggered a cascade of neural activity, a chain reaction your ancestors could not have imagined 5,000 years ago. Humans are not born to read. Our brains had to improvise, hijacking ancient circuits for a brand new skill called neural recycling. Why did the sudden invention of writing, like Sumerian cuneiform in 3300 BCE, force the human brain to transform itself? The answer changes everything you thought you knew about how reading and reading alone reshapes who we are. 5,000 years ago, the world's first written symbols began to appear on clay tablets in ancient Mesopotamia. Sumerian cuneiform, pressed into wet clay with a reed stylus around 3300 BCE, wasn't just a way to record trade or inventory. It was a brand new technology, one that no human brain had ever encountered before. Across the desert in Egypt, a different group of people developed their own system, hieroglyphs, without any knowledge of what the Sumerians were doing. These writing systems didn't spring from a single source. They emerged independently, proof that the urge to capture language in visible form was a turning point for our species. At first, these scripts were simple pictures. A drawing of a fish meant an actual fish. But over centuries, the pictures grew more abstract. A wedge-shaped mark might stand for a sound, an idea, or a name. The alphabet as we know it, with symbols representing spoken sounds, would not appear for another 2,000 years. Every step in this evolution demanded that the brain invent new ways to process symbols, link them to sounds, and hold their meaning in memory. The invention of writing was recent enough that it left no time for evolution to build specialized circuits. Instead, every reader, ancient or modern, must adapt their brain to meet the demands of these strange, artificial marks. The story of reading begins not in our genes, but in the spark of human creativity that turned speech into something the eye could see and the mind could shape. The human brain was never designed for reading. Unlike spoken language, which unfolds naturally as a child listens and mimics, reading demands something extraordinary. The brain must rewire itself to make sense of marks on a page. Scientists call this process neural recycling. Circuits that once specialized in recognizing faces and objects are pressed into service for a brand new job: turning shapes into language. Deep inside the left fusiform gyrus lies a patch of cortex known as the visual word form area, or VWFA. This region does not exist at birth. It emerges only after months, sometimes years, of exposure to print. As a child learns to read, the VWFA becomes finely tuned to the patterns and regularities of written words. Imaging studies show that as literacy grows, the VWFA lights up within just 200 milliseconds of seeing a word, faster than conscious thought. The more a person reads, the stronger and more efficient these circuits become. This is not just a metaphor. Reading literally rewires brain architecture, forging new connections between vision, language, memory, and attention. The adult brain, once thought to be fixed, proves astonishingly flexible, ready to reshape itself for the demands of written language. This transformation is visible in brain scans and measurable in behavior, offering a window into the remarkable plasticity that underpins every reading journey. Inside a quiet neuroscience lab, a group of adults in their 30s and 40s volunteered for an unusual experiment. None of them could read a single word. For 6 months, they attended daily lessons, tracing unfamiliar letters, sounding out syllables, and piecing together meaning from scratch. As their skills grew, scientists tracked every change inside their brains using MRI and diffusion imaging, tools that reveal not just where brain activity happens, but how regions connect and communicate. After half a year, these new readers reached the level of a first-grade child. But the real breakthrough came in the scans. The transformation was not limited to a single spot. Learning to read activated and reorganized circuits across all 4 lobes of the cortex. The occipital lobe, usually focused on recognizing shapes and faces, took on the task of decoding letters. The temporal lobe, home to spoken language, started linking those shapes to sound. Parietal regions, responsible for attention and spatial awareness, joined in to track lines and words. Even the frontal lobe, the seat of planning and self-control, began to manage the flow of meaning across sentences. The changes ran deeper than the surface. White matter fibers thickened, connecting distant regions more efficiently. New pathways formed between ancient brainstem structures and modern cortical circuits. These adults' brains, once shaped for a world without print, had physically adapted to the demands of reading. The magnitude of this adaptation surprised even seasoned neuroscientists. In just 6 months, the adult brain proved itself astonishingly flexible, building a network that spans vision, language, memory, and attention, a whole brain system forged by the act of learning to read. In a quiet hospital room, a man who once read fluently in both Chinese and English faced a world divided by a single stroke. The damage, mapped by doctors to a region deep in his left occipito-temporal cortex, had erased his ability to read Chinese characters. Yet English words, built from letters and sounds, remained untouched. This was not a trick of memory. It was the brain's wiring laid bare. Logographic Chinese, with its intricate visual forms, depends on neural circuits tuned for spatial memory and visual association. English, with its alphabetic code, relies on different pathways, ones that link symbols to sounds. The stroke spared these, but destroyed the patterns needed for Chinese. Cases like his reveal how reading is not a one-size-fits-all process. The brain builds separate, specialized circuits for each writing system we learn. For parents raising bilingual children, this means every bedtime story in a different script is sculpting a distinct set of pathways. Each language leaves its own fingerprint in the brain's architecture. But the story does not end at language. When the same man struggled through a Chinese poem, he felt nothing, no rise in pulse, no tightening in his chest. Reading English, he laughed at a joke and felt a pang at a sad line. The anterior insula, a region known for mapping physical pain and emotion, lit up only when meaning broke through. Neuroscientists have found that this patch of cortex activates whether the pain comes from a scraped knee or a story's heartbreak. The brain does not distinguish between the two. Books can make us feel, quite literally, in our bodies. Around kitchen tables, parents notice this magic every day: a child's gasp at a plot twist, a quiet shiver at a scary tale. These moments are more than stories. They are living proof that reading reaches into the very circuits that shape our feelings and our sense of self. As screens begin to change how young brains encounter words, the stakes for protecting these deep, embodied experiences have never been clearer. Swiping a finger across a screen or tapping through endless notifications, the act of reading has taken on a new form, one that rewards speed over depth. Skimming, the default mode of digital reading, is built on a cycle of novelty and interruption. Each alert or pop-up offers a tiny burst of excitement, training the brain to crave constant change. Instead of moving slowly through a story, the mind jumps from headline to headline, barely pausing to process meaning before being pulled away by the next distraction. This habit forms quickly as the brain's reward system learns to expect something new with every scroll. Over time, the circuits once strengthened by deep reading and sustained attention begin to favor rapid shifts and surface-level scanning. The result is a shallow processing loop where information is glanced at but rarely absorbed. Notifications do not just interrupt, they teach the brain to expect interruption, making it harder to focus even when the screen is silent. The mechanics of skimming are not just a matter of preference. They reshape the very patterns of attention and engagement inside the developing brain. By the time a child reaches 8 years old, the effects of constant digital stimulation can be measured in the very circuits that control focus and self-control. Longitudinal studies following thousands of children reveal a clear pattern. Kids exposed to more than 6 hours of daily screen time show a measurable drop in attention and executive function, about a quarter of a standard deviation lower than peers who spend less time on screens. These are not just numbers on a chart. In classrooms and living rooms, the reality plays out as children who struggle to sit through a story, who fidget and drift during quiet activities, who complain of boredom the moment the devices are put away. The brain's reward system, tuned by years of rapid-fire digital input, now expects constant novelty. Tasks that once held a child's interest, like building with blocks, listening to a teacher, even playing outside, start to feel dull by comparison. This is not a matter of willpower or discipline. The wiring for sustained attention, once built by deep reading and focused play, is being pruned away before it ever has a chance to grow strong. Right now, the way we read is reshaping the very structure of our children's brains. As screens compete for attention, every page turned becomes an act of resistance and renewal. The future of our society's intelligence is being built, word by word. How will you help write it?